Alright, so now we're going to deal with multiplying and dividing sign numbers. So first, let's look at multiplication. So 3 times 4. Well, what does 3 times 4 mean? It really means you've got 3 groups of 4, right? 3 times 4 is 12. So really, you've got 3 groups of 4 being added together, which is where the 12 comes from. So if we apply the same logic to negative numbers, this is saying we have 3 groups of negative 4. As we've already learned, would be negative 4 plus negative 4 is negative 8. Negative 8 plus negative 4 would be negative 12. Okay? So there's this rule that comes about. When you have a positive times a positive, you're going to result a positive. When you have a negative times a negative, you're going to result... Oh, sorry, wrong one. When you have a negative times a positive, you're going to result a negative. Or if you have a positive times a negative, you're going to result a negative. Now here's the tricky part, the one I just tried to give you. If you have a negative times a negative, end result is going to be a positive. So let's continue with this logic here. So if 3 times negative 4 is negative 12, well, the same is true about negative 4 and 3. Because you've got negative times a positive, which is negative. 4 times 3 is 12, so you're going to result negative 12. But if you have negative 3 times negative 4, negative times negative is a positive. 3 times 4 is a positive 12. Okay? Now conceptually, what that is saying, on this one you're saying you have the opposite. So you start off with this, you've got the opposite of 4 times 3. Well, what's 4 times 3? It's a 12. And what's the opposite? Negative 12. Negative 3. Okay? Now, if you have negative 4 times negative 3, outside one is saying you have an opposite of a negative. The opposite of a negative is a positive. So 4 times 3 results in your 12. Okay? So the same rule applies when dealing with division. Okay? What's 6 divided by 4? 4. Right? You're simply taking 16. Sorry, I said 6. I meant 16. 16 divided by 4 is 4. What you're doing is you're taking 16 and you're dividing it up 4 ways. Okay? Well, so what's negative 16 divided by 4? Well, now you're taking negative 16. So imagine you've got a debt of $16, and you divide that debt up 4 ways. So your end result is going to be negative 4. Okay, so this one over here is a 4. This one's negative 4. Okay, and the same rule applies with division. So if I have positive divided by positive, end result positive. If I have a positive divided by a negative, end result, negative. If I have a negative divided by positive, end result, negative. If I have a negative divided by a negative, just like the multiplication, it's going to result in a positive. Okay? Now where this gets really interesting is if you have more than just 2. So say you've got a positive times positive times positive. Guess what? End result's positive. Okay? So say you've got 3 times 2 times 4. 3 times 2, 6. 6 times 4 is 24, right? But now, if you make one of these a negative, okay? Well, negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. Negative 6 times positive 4 would be negative 24. So the moment you throw one negative in here, anywhere, it's going to change the result. Okay? But if I have 2 negatives thrown in there, those 2 negatives, when they multiply together, they will cancel out, and the result will be positive. Okay? But what if we have 3 negatives? Well, we work it out. Negative times negative, that would be a positive. But we still got to multiply it by this other negative. So positive times negative is negative. So here's the way it works. When you have an even number of negatives, end result, if you're multiplying or dividing them, is going to be positive. If you had an odd number of negatives that you were multiplying or dividing, end result is going to be negative. Right? Let's do one example before I turn this video off. Say I've got negative 36 divided by negative 6 divided by, or let's go, sorry, times 2. Okay, now it's really important that you work left to right, that we follow the order of operations. An order of operations for us right now says do your multiplication and division left to right, then do your addition and subtraction left to right. Okay, so I start off here. Here's my negative 36. I meant that to be a negative 2. So I've got negative 36 divided by negative 6. So I move along and say, aha, there's my division. Okay? That comes first because that's what came first as I move left to right. You don't do the multiplication first. Okay? You do whatever comes first. It's multiply and divide left to right. So it's whichever one of these comes first. So I go negative 36 divided by negative 6. Well, a negative divided by a negative is a positive. 36 divided by 6 is a 6. So I've got positive 6. Now I continue with my movement over. What is 6 times negative 2? Well, I've got a positive times a negative, so end result is going to be negative. 6 times 2, 12. Okay? Now, if I had done that multiplication first, might not have ended up with the right answer. Okay? So you've got to make sure that you go from left to right and do whichever operation, either multiply or divide, whichever one comes first. Don't do the multiplication, then the division. Do multiplication and division, just whichever one comes first, as you move left to right.